Today we look at the NBA players with the worst work ethic. To be one of the top basketball players in the world, you'd think you'd have to be one of the hardest workers. Well, the truth is, some players are either just naturally gifted athletically and talent-wise, and others may have worked hard at one point to get to where they did, but eventually got lazy once they got money and fame. And for both cases, a lot of these players' careers directly reflect exactly what happened. Like, let's start first with Shaq. He's clearly one of the ones that were naturally gifted in terms of both talent and athleticism. Sure, he worked hard to make it into the league and at some points in his career to get as good as he was, but he was also 7 feet tall and over 300 pounds. At the same time though, O'Neal was infamous for being lazy and often out of shape. It's something that even Kobe Bryant said was the root of all of their problems back in LA. Of course, nobody was gonna work as hard as Kobe, and I don't think any amount of hard work would have made him happy, but you get the point. Even Shaq himself said that Phil Jackson would know to take it easy on him at the start of the season because he knew he was gonna come in from the offseason and be out of shape. He even said he used to eat McDonald's for breakfast and lunch on game days, then would go to a restaurant afterwards. Clearly Shaq's game didn't need much work, he was one of the all-time greats, but the weight thing was always an issue. I mean, you look at his Orlando Magic days and he was in amazing shape, then started to look like a completely different player once he got to LA and Miami. He was still in great shape at times while he was there, but his weight was always up and down. And it was everything afterwards when things started to get out of hand. But either way, Shaq was one of the lucky ones. Not one of the hardest workers, but still naturally gifted enough to become a top 10 player of all time. And it's one of my major goals to become a top 10 player of all time, and the sponsor of today's video, Raid Shadow Legends. If you're looking for an online game with hundreds of champions to collect, a super in-depth RPG battle system, amazing graphics, intense PvE boss fights, then Raid Shadow Legends is the game for you. But one of the best features in Raid is the 6-headed Hydra clan boss. Each head is a complete boss battle and each brings its own unique challenge. For example, the head of Suffering is all about making you suffer, because any damage you do to it hurts you too. The head of Blight is all about poison and using it to hurt your team badly, but it's extremely weak to fire and HP burn champions. While the head of Mischief is the worst one, because it steals all your buffs and spreads them out to all of the other Hydra heads. But great challenge comes with great rewards. Now for new players, there's also multiple free events going on. You can get Stag Knight, one of the best epic champions in the game, along with a skin designed by JonTron by using promo code JTSkin before October 7th. You can get a free legendary champion Sun Wukong by logging on 7 different days by October 23rd. And if you use my link or promo code, you can get epic champion Talia, energy refills, skill tomes, and XP boosters. Just remember to hit my link in the description and I'll see you on the battlefield. Shout out to them for the sponsor. Now back to the video. Zion Williamson, on the other hand, well, he struggled with his weight and work ethic issues, and his career hasn't even really gotten started. I'm not trying to sit here and criticize Zion for being overweight, but in his particular case, it's directly related to his lack of work ethic. And he's in a very similar boat to Shaq. He came into the league being a complete freak of nature like nothing we have ever seen before. But from day one, before he was ever drafted, the fact that he was near 300 pounds with a 45-inch vertical was a major concern for Zion's health and his knees. And at the time, he was fully in shape, he was muscular, and it was just the way he was built. But when you pair that with the fact that his work ethic has been called into question from the time he was drafted, and his weight has been called into question so much that he had to have a clause put in his contract to make sure it stayed down, it's just not a good combination. Mainly because it's led to injuries every season so far of his 4-year career. And he's missed a total of 60% of his NBA games so far. Listen, I mean, the fact that these random pictures come out every once in a while of him in excellent shape leave hope and show that there's something there. They show that he didn't just get drafted first overall because he was a freak of nature. But at least up until this point, we're gonna need more proof than the random Instagram picture if we want to believe that Zion Williamson is actually a hard worker. So we mentioned Zion, now we have to bring up another former first overall pick in Ben Simmons. You see, for a few years there, Ben was off the hook. Everything was going great for him. He too looked like a freak of nature playing as a 6'10" point guard. He was making all-star teams, Philly was succeeding, he was one of the best defenders in the NBA. And early on, even though he couldn't shoot 3-pointers, he was still young, so it wasn't the end of the world. The dude was averaging near triple doubles every season, putting up 15 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists a game. But when it got to his 3rd and 4th season in a row, with those stats never changing at all, it was getting a little suspicious. And that, combined with the fact that he's been in the league for 7 seasons now and has never learned to shoot a 3, just proved that he didn't work hard. And it just doesn't make sense. We see this dude in workout videos every single offseason, working on his game and practicing threes, making 5 or 6 in a row at times. He must only do the bare minimum and work out only when it's being recorded to put on YouTube, or else it just doesn't make sense. None of this should even be a surprise though, with one early NBA scouting report saying that he seemed to have a major lack of competitiveness even back then. So it all makes sense and gives us actual physical proof to look back on and confirm his poor work ethic. Another player that we can look back on and actually have the proof for is Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins, thanks to Jimmy Butler. The whole Timberwolves Jimmy Butler thing started because he had problems that both of Minnesota's stars didn't work hard, and he publicly called them out for it. Now we can give Wiggins a pass here though, because it seems like he's fixed his problem ever since joining Golden State. Everything Jimmy Butler didn't like about him, he's pretty much fixed. He gives excellent effort on defense and his game's improved every year. But on the other hand, for Towns, it makes sense, and all you have to do is look at his numbers. And the fact that none of his stats have ever really dramatically gotten better in any of his 8 seasons. You know, with star players, they eventually have a big jump up at some point that sets them apart. But instead, Cat's numbers go up one year and down the next. He's making all-star teams one year, then missing it the next. And sure, there's been some injuries here and there, but I also think a large part of it is that he never truly has fixed that work ethic problem, which probably made it rough for everyone else when D'Angelo Russell was on the same team with him. And it's pretty much the same story. D'Angelo had a rough first couple of years in the league, but then in 2018, at 22 years old, he broke out and became an all-star in that one year for Brooklyn. That offseason, he got paid a massive 4-year, $117 million contract, and was never an all-star again. In fact, his game really never got any better after that, and it kind of always went downhill. Listen, for Russell, we don't really have that many cold hard facts besides observations and stats, which don't always mean everything, but he's someone that just always gave me that feeling that he wasn't working hard, and due to the fact that he peaked at 22 probably backs that up. Another player that always gave off that same vibe, but on like 10 times the level, was Michael Beasley, and this one you can't really argue against. He only played a single season in college, but he averaged 26 and 12 on 40% from 3, having one of the all-time most dominant college seasons ever, and he did it as a freshman, and that was his peak. It was pretty much all downhill from there, and I don't know if he just got to the league and thought he made it, so he stopped trying, or if he got paid and thought that he was set or what. But it's very rare that a number 2 overall pick comes into the NBA and falls off after only their 3rd season. Sure, his off-court issues didn't help any, but it was more than that. The first half of his career, he bounced around way too many teams and he was never able to find the right fit. But it wasn't just a fit issue, because if he had been working hard and getting better every season, Michael Beasley wouldn't have been getting bounced around by teams. They would have done what they could to hold on to him, and he still would have developed into a much better player in whatever role he was given. But instead, in only his 4th season, he became a lifetime bench player, and after his 6th, he was playing in China. So talent and no hard work can only take you so far, and Michael Beasley's the perfect example. Maybe the exact opposite of that though, and someone that completely defeats that argument, was Allen Iverson, because yes, I'm sure AI worked hard at some point, but at least ever since being in the league, it didn't seem like it was for him. Sure, 20 years later, he still gets made fun of for that practice speech, but don't forget, the entire thing is him saying that it shouldn't matter if he practices or not, as long as he does well in games. And that's not the mindset of a hard worker. And if that's not enough evidence for you, well, he himself said, "I didn't care about drills, but if you're playing 5-on-5, then I'm ready and I want to do that. I had a pattern of skipping practice. Sometimes I was out too late, and when I came in there, I just didn't feel like doing it." While also saying that in terms of work ethic, he was not Kobe, which basically translates to Kobe works hard and he doesn't. But do you know how naturally gifted you have to be to become an NBA Hall of Famer and not work hard at all? AI is one of the very few cases, but not the only one, because a guy like Dwight Howard may be another one. Now, clearly Dwight Howard worked hard early in his career, and I think Dwight's problem came down to 2 things. The first, of course, was the most obvious, in his attitude. It was talked about for years, especially when things stopped working for him, and people beat that argument into the ground. But it was true, which is why it was such an overused statement and argument to say that Dwight Howard had a problem because he never took things seriously. He liked to play around and have fun, and it cost him some of his work ethic. There's no debating that. It was the #1 reason things didn't work out for him on the Lakers. Kobe said it's all just a game to him and he doesn't take it seriously enough. And when Howard got to LA and saw just how serious Kobe Bryant took things, he went running. But I think Dwight's other main issue was that even if he did work hard, he only liked working hard at things he was good at. He lifted weights and he practiced post moves. I mean, you look at his Magic days and on, and he never really expanded his game inside or out of the post. And even when he got to train with Hakeem Olajuwon on his post moves, Hakeem would publicly come out and say that Dwight Howard just wasn't learning anything that he taught him. They'd work on moves all summer, then the season would start and he would go right back to his old ways. And that's all not even including the way his career fell apart, because the game changed and he didn't. He was a superstar player that fell off partially on his own, but also because he was a traditional big man that never put in the hard work like a guy like Brook Lopez or even Serge Ibaka did to develop an outside shot and a game from behind mid-range. And that was one of the biggest things that cost him his career. And lack of effort was also what caused another star his career in OJ Mayo, who was in the 7th grade playing varsity basketball and averaging 23 points a game. He was a natural-born superstar basketball player from the start. He had God-gifted talent that, come on, as a 7th grader, he wasn't doing much hard work for. And things got even crazier from there, because he would go on to average 29 points a game in the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, while at one point having 16,000 fans come see him play in a high school game. He was a superstar before he ever got into the league. He then did 1 year in college where he played great and got drafted 3rd overall to the Grizzlies. Up until this point, everything had just come easy to him and he had cruised by, playing with the confidence and skill that just naturally came to him, and it brought him all the way to the NBA, but then kind of stopped from there. In his first season, he was runner-up for Rookie of the Year behind D Rose. In his second season, he played just as good. In year 3, thanks to off-court issues, he was moved to being a 6th man and really never recovered. After that, he had one good season playing for Dallas where he averaged 15 a game, but besides that, it was 3 years of average play for Milwaukee off the bench before he got permanently banned from the league. But whether he was banned or not, I think we see the path OJ was headed for. His game had been declining for years because all of his natural ability was running out. Everyone around him was continuing to get better and he wasn't. The ban saved him from declining any more spots on an NBA roster, but at least he's continued playing overseas ever since. Shout out once again to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring the video. Now just don't forget to use my link in the description or scan my QR code on screen to get insane bonuses for new players with an epic champion.